Here we go. Awesome. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for today's SEJ webinar. I am here with Ariel Schulman, VP of Bright Data. Ariel, thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. So I'm the moderator. I'm Heather. I oversee the marketing team here at SEJ. And what we're here to talk about today is how you can track and optimize AI search performance. We will also have a breakout session with Rafael Levy, excuse me, solutions architect of Bright Data. So at the end of the presentation, you can choose to stay for the Q&A or go see a deeper dive with the Bright Data team. So today we're going to talk, Ariel's going to dive into some practical technical strategies for ways that you can monitor and optimize your visibility in AI generated search results. So before I kick it over to Ariel, I'm going to do some quick housekeeping. First, use the chat and let us know where you're coming in from. If you need closed captioning, it's a little CC in the top right of your screen. Just give that a click. We are going to do Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you have questions, please add them to the Q&A tab. If you see a question that you like, you can give it a little thumbs up, and that upvote just tells us what's more important. So we'll do our best to kind of front load those. And like I said, we will have a breakout at the end of the presentation. So hang in there for that. All right. Before you leave today's call, we're going to shoot you over a short survey. It just lets us know how today's event went and how we can make them better in the future. Lastly, you will receive today's recording and slides in your inbox, so watch out for that later today. We've got some polls, we've got some handouts, we're gonna have a good time. So with that, Ariel, I'm gonna turn it over to you. I'll be back at the Q&A.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone, and thanks again for joining us. My name is Ariel Schulman. I'm the VP of Product for Bright Data. And, just like you, I hear a lot about AI, and I wanted to talk about its impact on search. I don't know about you guys, but, things are changing incredibly fast, for me at least. It's a bit scary, and it's not really clear what's going on, and which platforms are going to be the winner platforms, which will be the preferred platforms for specific users or specific tasks, maybe now, maybe in the future. You guys are search marketers. In a way, we're also search marketers for our own stuff, so we feel this pain. But we're also a company that specializes in web scraping and SERP, so we handle this for a ton of customers. So I'm going to be showing you some solutions. Some of them we use ourselves, but let's talk about Bright Data. So who are we? So Bright Data is the leader in what we call public web data. Public web data means any kind of information that you can find online with no username or password. It's freely available to everyone. So we're talking about things like prices, product reviews, legal documents, obviously search results. We are not a startup company. We have been around for 10 years. I've been with the company since its inception. And we invented a lot of this stuff. We've been doing SERP for 10 years. And the challenge is actually to do this at scale. We work at very large scales. We have 20,000 customers. We serve most of the e-commerce brands that In fact, if you booked a plane ticket or a hotel or something, like did some shopping, probably you went through our systems. So I like to think that we know what we're doing. Now, when we do this, the theory or the hypothesis from our side is what we're saying is public web data belongs to the public. The internet is like a big library. Public web data belongs to the public, and this should be available to anyone, regardless of how you choose to access it. But surprise, surprise, some large corporations disagree with this, okay? And they want to be protective of their data. And Google is actually one of them. That it's not easy to collect search results from Google. So the legal framework for public web data collection is being, established. It's not something that exists. And so there's action going on. And one of the interesting things that happened to us a few years back is that we were actually sued. So Bright Data was sued by Meta and by Twitter. This is before Elon was president and before Mark Zuckerberg had that weird hairdo. And they sued us. And basically they said, you guys are not allowed to access our publicly available data. Funny enough, Facebook was actually a customer of Bright Data, scraping many websites. And we spent a lot of money on these lawsuits, a lot of millions of dollars. And we won. Okay, we won both cases in federal court in California. You can see the quote from the judge here on the right. You don't own the internet. That's correct, Your Honor. And this is a very important legal precedent. So we really believe that web data should be public and should be accessible to everyone. And we're spending the money and the effort to make sure that it happens. So with that said, let's talk about the landscape of search and how it's changing now that we have Gen AI all over the place. So a few things are changing. The answers are changing, the platforms are changing, and the users are changing. The answers are changing because users are asking different types of questions. Before, maybe they asked short questions with a few words, transactional kind of queries, and now they're going much deeper. So the answers are changing, and we're going to see how. The platforms are also changing. We see that all the time. So traditional search engines like Google and Bing are adding more and more AI components that generate some of the results. And also, we have AI tools which are joining, at an incredible pace, more and more AI tools, and many of which offer web search. So that's another way for users to search. And then, users also change, because a few years ago, the only entities that searched were people. And now we have AI agents who are doing plenty of searches on behalf of people, and we're going to be talking about that as well. So the idea here is to discuss what is changing and how can we adapt to this evolving market. So having said that, let's talk about the answers. I think that when I look at traditional search, it was like going to the library and getting like a catalog of the available books. So a catalog of links or available books, but then you need to choose a book and start reading it. And with AI, it's more like asking someone who already read all the books and they know the answer and they give you a good answer, but they can also point you to the right book if you want to go a little bit deeper. So this is very different. And we think that marketers, such as yourselves, need to adapt. Because again, the queries are changing. Before, simple keywords, and now much, much more elaborate questions, sometimes even paragraphs. So maybe if you were in the gym, you wanted to know something about protein powder. On Google, you would put in protein powder 2025, something like that. Not even a grammatical, not even a sentence. But with AI, you are actually going to tell it a little story. I work out 3 times a week, lifting weights. I'm 25 years old. What's the best protein powder for increasing muscle mass after a workout? So very, very different queries. And this also impacts the answers. Now, the answers coming from these search engines that use AI are very different, because in many cases, they integrate information from sites, and then there is little to no need to visit the actual site. And this changes the user experience. We're going to see a nice ad from Perplexity in a second. And the last thing that's different with answers is that the structure is changing. We are all used to the kind of the classical structure of a search page or the results page, and that's different. And it's different based on what you're asking. It's very, very hard to predict, and that makes life difficult for experts in search such as yourselves. So let's look at this little ad for Perplexity. You probably recognize this guy from Squid Games. He's going to go into a room, and as you could expect, nothing good will happen to him. And he's going to have a little challenge. So I'm just muted the voice.
Hello, Li Zhongzhe. Welcome to your challenge. Answer 3 questions.
So he's getting time challenge questions. How do you remove coffee stains from a white shirt? And he will go to a search engine. And as you can imagine, he's only going to get back a bunch of links, which is not what you want to get in this kind of stressful situation. So for some cases, looking for search results will only give you additional work. But when he goes to Perplexity, asks a query, and note that he did it in Korean, and he's going to get an answer in English, and you're going to be able to continue. So users are able to choose the best tool for the task at hand. Okay. Here's another question. So, you need to think about this. If this is how people get their info, what does this mean for your website, for your traffic? And I think it's pretty clear that this has an impact on traffic. And if you can see in the quote here below from Gartner predicts that the search engine volume will go down by about 25% by 2026. Personally, I think it's more. I have found myself going to Google almost never. So I think it's going to be more. But that's something that we're going to see in the coming months and years. So, this nice AI experience that we talked about comes at a price, for website owners. So look at this quote from Reddit. Basically, this guy saying that he saw a drop in his page views from keywords that used to be or are in the top 3, and you realize the generative AI is giving the answers, and then basically people get what they need. They don't even need to go to the website. And this is 1 year ago. So imagine by now things have gotten even better. So these AI summaries can really cause a big drop. And we put up a poll on the right there to ask you if you are seeing the same trend that Google and other kind of generative AI are actually taking away from your traffic. So feel free to vote on that. All right, so let's talk about extracting AI answers. So what does it take? It's not easy, okay? So what you're looking at here is basically the technology stack that we have developed. You, as search marketers, you put in your quest, and then there's a whole lot that goes on under the hood. We need to crawl, we need to discover the pages, we need to render them in a browser. We're going to see that in a minute. We need to scrape, choose proxy addresses in different countries, unlock pages. If there are CAPTCHAs, we need to handle the CAPTCHAs, and then we need to scrape the data, we need to parse it, we need to clean it and validate that it's fine, and then we format it and we make it available too. So there's a lot of effort going on here, and we have a lot of technology, rotating proxies. We mimic human behavior and all sorts of things to get you the data so that it's transparent to you. So when you do this at scale, it's hard. And something interesting happened in January. You probably know that Google changed some things in January. Before January 25, you could get search results, basically if you had some proxies and you changed fingerprints and the headers. But after January 25, even this was no longer enough. So Google decided that a browser is required to get search results. And this caused global outages. Okay, you can see this here. In fact, you can see here an email from a company that we know that went ahead and informed their customers that there was an outage and that things are going to be more expensive now because they need to spend more resources on getting them the data that they need. Now, we in Bright Data, we work 24/7. We are a global company. We have a network operations center, etc. And when this happened, this happened at around 2 a.m. Very convenient, Israel time. And this, what you see here on the left, is kind of what we call the success rate for scraping Google on our servers. So it was basically 100%. That's fine, and then it dropped to basically 0. And this is because Google enforced this requirement to use a browser. So you had to use a browser. And now we fortunately have tens of thousands of online browsers doing scraping for many, many other tasks that we have. So we woke a couple of engineers up and they did some changes. And within a few hours, everything was back to normal. And you can see that the line is back at 100%. And it was actually funny to see the following morning an email from one of our customers who's using the search engine saying that they heard about some outage and how are we going to fix it? And basically what happened was we fixed it while they were asleep. They didn't even notice that everything is that something happened. So that's what we do in Bright Data to keep the operations going, and we are even able to keep the prices the same. So once you get the page, you're basically just getting started, because the page, as we said, used to look in a very kind of predictable way with PPC links and organic links and things like that. But now, in some cases, you get AI-generated content, which is what you see here in this red rectangle. And these AI-generated content pieces sometimes appear, sometimes they don't appear. When they do appear, all the search results are pushed down significantly, and this has a really negative impact on CTR, as we can, as you would expect. So the question is, what kind of queries trigger this AI, and how can you be a bigger part of the generated AI response? So let's look at a demo. I'm going to go one by one here. It can be a bit technical, so I'll go slowly. So on the left, we have the terminal window of basically the marketer. So you sending the query, asking for information. Bottom left, we have the file. It's going to appear here. And when the file arrives, we're going to open it in Firefox on the right. So see what we're doing here is we're going to be sending a query to Google. Okay. And this query, you can see it's google.com search. And the query, does honey ever expire, is actually an informational query. And the reason we did this is because we wanted to trigger the AI mode so that you can see the AI responses. So I'm going to hit play, and we will let this run, and you're going to see this running here in a second, and then the file will show at the bottom. So this is now running. We're waiting for the file to appear. And there we are. We have 41 kilobytes of, oops, I'm sorry, jumped backward for some reason. Okay. So the file is here finally. Yes, 41 kilobytes is the file size. And what we're going to do now is open the file so we can take a look at it on the right-hand side. So these are the results. You can see we're searching Google. Does honey ever expire? That's the query. Okay. And then we extracted from the AI overview the text which was included in the AI overview because we identified that there was AI content in this page, even though it's dynamic. And we can even extract the links that the AI used to generate its response. Okay, so this is, we make all of this transparent to you. And of course, the links provided are very useful because you can then optimize your content. We will touch on that in a minute. So what can you do to help AI index your content? The first three bullets here are basically stuff that you already do. That's why there's a little asterisk next to them. So you need to basically have as many words as possible, but they need to be written in natural language, something that feels human, because AI engines prefer that kind of content. It needs to be fresh because AI looks at signals like the publish date and the frequency of the updates to decide if this is good stuff to include or not. And you really want to structure it correctly, including H1 headers with the keywords, the PM primary keywords, and H2 with the subtopics. And you need to use bullets and numbered lists, again, to make it as easy as possible for the AI engine to ingest this information. Another thing you need to do, and sometimes people overlook this, is you need to make sure that your content is indexable. Okay, we all know robots.txt. You need to make sure that your site is mobile friendly, because that's something that these search engines look at. It has a sitemap, and the robots.txt file explicitly allows for these bots to look at it. Otherwise, basically, they won't see it. So when we did this, we have in Bright Data, we have a docs.brightdata.com is like a repository of our documentation, where when we implemented some of these changes, we actually saw a traffic increase from ChatGPT, because when people were asking generic questions about web scraping, Bright Data came up, and the citations were pulling information and putting links into Bright Data. So we saw an increase in ChatGPT. So I guess that's encouraging. If you do things properly, you can actually even increase the traffic that you get to your site. So the platforms are changing. I think we talked about that, and clearly there's a big difference between search and AI. In search, you input text. In AI, you can input text, voice, as we saw in the video, in any language, or even image. You can take a photo of something and ask you what it is or something like that. Not easy to do in search. Search has very little context or memory of what you're doing. You can almost think of every individual query as independent, but AI has a lot of context and memory. So if you ask something, it's going to answer you in the context of what you have been discussing with it in the past. As we saw, search gives you links, which basically require you to do some additional navigation, whereas AI gives you answers, sometimes in your language, which is great, and in many cases, in one step, you get what you need. Also, search has ads, and AI does not have ads. So we talked earlier about the page structure changing as the queries change. So how do these queries impact the search? You all know about types of queries: transactional, navigational, research, long tail, etc. If you look at transactional queries, such as Mazda 3 fuel consumption, which is not even a sentence, that is very likely to continue going into Google. But if you look at something like which car is more reliable, Mazda 3 or Tesla, then that's something in the middle, Some people will put this into AI answer engines. Some will put it into Google or Bing or any of those guys, and they are quite likely to get a mix with some AI generated answers here. But if people are really in kind of research mode, and they will be asking things like, which car has the lowest cost over a year, including gas, insurance, and maintenance, split it, electric and gasoline, that's something that most definitely will go into AI answer engines. But, and this is the interesting part, these answer engines still look at search engines to find the information. So effectively, the research is done by the agents on search engines, but the user consumes the answer from the answer engine itself. So what do you need to do as a brand to monitor where you are in these answer engines? AI search is not like like traditional search. There's no ranking. It generates an answer, and you want to be visible in those answers. So I suggest that you do take this and you kind of split this into three. First of all is to look at the brand. So ask questions to the AI engines about your brand or keywords that are associated with your brand and see how you stack up. And we're going to do that in a second in a demo coming up. Another thing you can do is look at kind of a category view. So which are the top X? Which are the best Y? See if you come up and in what context. And another one, which is very, very interesting, is competitive information. A research question from a user: how is this brand better than another brand? And I don't know if you did this, but it's very interesting to see how AI engines answer this question. I think it's a very powerful answer once given by the AI engine. So let's do a demo. Going back to this triangle that I was talking about, and let's see how Bright Data looks on Perplexity. So what you're seeing on the screen here is the user interface for the Perplexity web scraper API from Bright Data. If you are doing this at scale, you're not going to be using this. You're going to be using an API, but for this demo, it's okay to use the user interface. And you can see here what we're going to do is we're going to perplexity.ai, and we're going to be putting in a query, a general query. Who is the best web scraping company? Okay, and we're doing this from the US. We can do this from any country, but I chose to do this from the US. And we're going to go with start collecting. Now, under the hood, we'll be launching browsers and choosing IPs and doing a lot of things and getting back the answer. So that answer will be downloaded to the same screen that you saw before. So we're going to be download the answer, and it is here. And we're going to be opening it to see what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to pause it for a second. Okay. So this is the prompt we put in. Who is the best web scraping company? The URL that was used, the answer, the HTML, and from that HTML we actually extract the actual text. And you can see, you can see from the HTML that it is good news. We are pretty high up there. Bright Data excels in multiple aspects, including large IP networks, etc. So this is the way it looks. And if you go down, you can see the links which were used by Perplexity in this case in order to prepare this answer. Oops, I apologize. I have a button here that overlaps with the YouTube. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so the links at the bottom are the links that are used to generate the response. And this is really interesting because if you go into those links, you can see or try to think why they were picked up. And if you optimize your content to be closer to them, you are more likely to show up. And if you do a good job, you probably will even get a citation back to your website, which is obviously good news. So this is the high level, but being a techie, we are really excited about how this works. So I really wanted to give you something that people usually cannot see, and this is what happens under the hood. Okay, because under the hood, there's a lot going on. What we're going to see here on the left is the terminal window, so the window that's visible to the user, and on the right is a kind of a diagnostic view of what's happening on a cloud browser somewhere on the internet. So in this case, we're going to be working with ChatGPT and sending some queries. I apologize, the text is really small, but basically it says there, what is the best hotel in New York? What are the prices? Is it okay in January? Things like that. Once you start running that, a ton of things happen, and we will go to ChatGPT anonymously without logging in and start sending the information or the query to that and send you the information back. But that is done in a very smart way that mimics a user 100%. So if you look at the text that's typed here, you can see that it's actually typed as a human would, because we want to do this in a smart way that's not going to be detected as a bot. Once the answer is provided, and we wait, of course, we need to wait for the answer to be completed, we will parse it and send it back to you. So here it is. And the next query can take place. This gives you the opportunity to have kind of a conversation, not just individual queries, but maybe a query and maybe a follow-up, and see what the whole experience would be for the user who's doing that kind of search. So this is what happens under the hood. I know that you usually don't see it, but we love this stuff. Okay, the customer is changing. I think it's pretty clear that right now there's more and more AI agents accessing search engines and websites, extracting data from multiple sources. Okay, we're not even talking about search engines. They will be going to places you wouldn't necessarily think of. They look at many sites. They look even for things like YouTube transcripts and many information sources to be able to provide the answers that you're looking for. So we need to adapt to these ever-changing behaviors. And these AI agents, they try to collect information, but surprise, surprise, they can get blocked. It's not easy to do this at scale. It might work if you have a demo. If you develop something, it could work when you're doing a few hundred or 1,000 queries. But if you have something big, it's going to get blocked. And in fact, we couldn't help but smile when we have a few guys in the company who have the ChatGPT $200 subscription, for the expensive one with the operator. And we asked ChatGPT to buy the best camera on Amazon for under $1,000, and surprise, surprise, it got blocked. So this is something that we handle in Bright Data as well. This is effectively a kind of a case of scraping, and I'm going to show you a demo of that, what happens and how this happens again under the hood. So what we are seeing here is this. We have again on the left the terminal window. We are sending a query. In this case, we're sending it to Bing, and the query is, will inflation rise? So someone is asking an AI agent if inflation will rise. The AI agent goes to Bing. It will go to Bing, of course, via our tools. The whole list of results will come in from Bing, and then we will go deep into each and every one of those results and crawl the pages, so the content that's linked inside, and provide a single response with everything inside. So I'm going to hit play, and you can see this happening in action. So this is now happening. The file is 0 kilobytes, and now it should be ready in a second. $119 kilobytes. Okay, we're open the file, and what you see here is the links, okay, and the content of the links. So for example, this is some money.usnews.com, okay, but this is the actual content of the second tier page. What AI agents do is they take the results, they take the contents of the results, they ingest the whole thing, and they trigger they generate the response. So if you are in the right place, you will show up in those answers. Okay, so summarizing, from a technical perspective, we do all the heavy lifting here. Okay, you need to send us a request, and then we're going to route it from different geographies and set different headers and cookies and user agents and do all sorts of things to avoid captchas. And if we have captchas, we're going to address the captchas and auto retry and do whatever we need and mimic a user to give you the information that you need in an HTML or JSON or Markdown or CSV, whatever format you need from that target domain. That's what we do in Bright Data. But if you look at this from a high level, we basically have two kind of audiences here, I think. So marketers and tool makers. If you're a marketer, I think it's really important to understand how your customers search and optimize your marketing strategy accordingly. Just tracking Google is not enough anymore. Remember, it's dropping. We saw it dropping 25% or maybe even more. So you need to understand how you appear in AI conversations. You need to track that maybe over time. You need to compare yourself, with respect to competitors, and you need to find the areas for improvements inside your operations to maximize the chances that you will show up and appear nicely inside those tools. If you make the tools, I think it's very important to provide this technology or make this technology accessible to marketers. The technology is there. Okay, we just saw that it's there. The infrastructure is there. If you build, you can easily build tools around this to make things that marketers can use to optimize their own systems. So to summarize, I think AI is clearly changing how people search and how they get answers and the platforms that they use. And you guys need to respond, and we would love to help you doing that. If you're still stuck in the old SEO mindset of trying to chase specific rankings and do all sorts of backlinks, I think it's time to adapt. And we need to think about how AI ingests and interprets this new content and how people consume the answers, and to make sure that we're still relevant. So with that, thank you very much, and I think we can turn to questions.
Great. Thanks, Ariel. I know I learned a few things in there. We've got some questions. I would say first and foremost, I know we've been having some issues with the handouts. I apologize for that. I think it's a glitch with the system. We will make sure that they're in your follow-up email, so you'll get all of those links. All right. So with that, we're going to open the breakout room. Thank you, Jonathan. So if you're interested in heading over to the breakout room to talk to Raphael about a little deeper dive into Bright Data and how they do things, you can join them there. Otherwise, stay here with me. We're going to answer some questions. You ready to do this, Ariel?
Yeah.
Right. So let's see.
Give me a good one.
So Chad Downer's asking, how do AIs handle information bias? How do we ensure AI is returning a factual, non-biased answer?
Wow. That's a big question that I think is probably should be directed to the guys who write up the AI, right? I don't know the specific answer to that. I mean, the AI engines are basically, they ingest stuff, and then based on some heuristics and a lot of neural networks and a lot of things that very few people understand, generate an answer. It is true that if they are fed with some information that's biased, they will generate biased responses. But I don't see from our perspective how we can really impact that. Our objective in Bright Data is to give you the tools to be discoverable, okay, and for that information to be easily discovered and indexed, and for you to see how you can benchmark yourself and things like that.
Yeah, I think making sure that it's factual, I think that's going to be something maybe we struggle with just for a little bit.
Yeah.
So Jory is asking, when you are talking about AI search, are you exclusively talking about chatbots or not including search engine AI overviews?
So I'm actually talking about both. If you look at something like Perplexity, that's primarily search. If you look at ChatGPT, there's a whole, you need to click like a web search button for that to get to pull real-time information. Bing has its Copilot, Google has its Gemini. The concepts are the same. The concepts are the same because even these tools, even though they're integrated into search platforms, they are basically kind of mirror images to an extent of what is already available as standalone tools.
All right. Kay is asking, how can I analyze which queries users search for in tools like ChatGPT or Perplexity to understand which search behaviors and know what I should optimize for?
Yeah, that's a big question. I don't have a good answer for that. I think that's obviously those platforms have the information. I don't think they're going to make it easily available. I think one of the ways maybe to look at this is to try to gauge the quality of the responses. If people are getting good responses, that could maybe indicate that this is a popular query. And if they're getting something that's maybe not great, then it was probably not asked many times. But that's a very, I think, rough approximation. Not great.
So Libby asks, we were told to put code in to limit AI copyright infringement. Will that limit our ability to show in AI search generally, or should I remove the code?
Can you repeat the question?
We were told to put code in to limit AI copyright infringement. Will that limit their ability to show in AI search?
To limit copyright infringement. So the person asking the question has content, or the
Yes. It sounds like they have content. They put a snippet of code on their site so that AI couldn't, maybe scrape it, grab their. So
Okay.
what the ask is that limiting what they're showing on
Yes.
AIOs?
Yeah, for the most part, yes. So when we looked at the file robots.txt, okay, you can actually, can I go back? Is that okay?
Yeah, let me close this down. Yep, go ahead.
So here, I suggested that you would explicitly allow this, Perplexity bot, etc., to go and search slash means everything, but you can very easily disallow certain parts of your website or even your entire website. Okay. My concern was that it is possible that some people disallowed, for example, everything except for Googlebot. Okay, and by doing that, they not knowingly there will be blocking search engines. But you have the ability using the robots.txt file to instruct robots to not go and use this information for AI. Absolutely.
Now that you show that screenshot, there's a question from Lisa Lamb, and Lisa, maybe Ariel and the team can follow up with you afterwards. But basically, Lisa has given, some code and how robots.txt and how that would look. And I'm not going to try to read it to you all, Ariel. So
Okay.
we should follow up with Lisa afterwards.
We can follow up, or maybe she can take it in the breakout room. Yeah.
All right, let's see. What else do we have? Jean is asking, hi, being on top of the search engine results page, is that enough for AIOs?
It helps, right? It helps a lot, because if you look at the demo that we did here of the AI agents or AI sites, if you are and in this example here, we're looking for the term "will inflation rise" in Bing? Not very commercial, but still a term. The results that are at the top of the search engine are more likely to be indexed than other results, because the search engine itself already basically did some pre-processing, and the fact that something is high up means that it's it suits the user's intent well. So yeah, there is a correlation. You still need to rank high up in the search engines to be indexed, but that's not enough. They will still go to your site directly, and you need to have your stuff properly articulated nicely and formatted well to be indexed.
Baha asks, should we add LLMs.txt file to the website?
I don't know the answer to that. That's something probably to take in the breakout room or check with us offline.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Michael's asking, would it be correct to say that in general, updating content to be less formal and more conversational helps improve AI visibility?
It appears to be the case. That's why I recommended it, because at the end of the day, when you remember my analogy about the library, you are kind of like talking to a friend, and the tone of these AI search engines is typically very positive, especially when you're in kind of chat mode. So it makes sense that content that's formatted at the source to be in that format will be better suited to compared to, let's say, scientific representation of the same thing. The whole AI thing is very not deterministic, and I will give you an example. Okay, it's something separate. So we have inside the Bright Data platform, we have what we call Bright AI, which is like a little ChatGPT that explains to you how to use Bright Data's tools, and that is trained on the documents that we feed it, and it doesn't know anything else. It just knows those documents. Still, it will sometimes give results that's, answers that surprise us. So it's just not very deterministic.
Okay, question from Noah. Is Bright Data used to create LLMs from search data?
Okay. Bright Data provides huge volumes of data to LLM companies to train their models. We gather something on the order of 2.5 petabytes per day from the internet. Hundreds of millions of links for audio, video, text, tokens, and that information is used to train AI models. So many of the AI models that you are using for images, for audio, for video, actually use stuff that they scrape from the web from us. So we don't do anything that's kind of LLM specific. Those are all trade secrets of the different LLM companies, but we provide the raw data for those models to be trained.
Let's see. Rohit's asking, how do we track AI generated results in Google Search Console in Analytics?
I can't talk to the Google Analytics console because I'm not a user. But one of the things that you can do, at least using the Bright Data system, is you can use a query and effectively say run it once a day and track it over time. So that in itself will allow you to see where you stand. But I have to caveat that with the fact again that AI is kind of strange. So you can ask the same question 3 seconds apart and you're going to get somewhat different answers. It's not deterministic. But if you still want to have some kind of, to see where the wind is blowing, then you can do that by using the same query and checking it over time.
Let's see. Serena's asking, when analyzing traffic on our websites, are we able to see the difference between users and AI agents? For example, when an AI agent visits our website, do they show up as a new user?
Okay, AI agents generally will not show up as a user because they are bots, and you should be able to see the user agent of that bot. So, for example, if Perplexity visits your site, you should be able to see in your logs traffic coming from Perplexity bot. Okay, and that is useful if you want to, for example, differentiate between traffic that people are like real human traffic, people moving the mouse, doing purchases and visiting pages in a certain order, from traffic from for example, Perplexity.
Perhaps a bit too technical, but let's see. Holly is asking, when creating new landing pages, should we still be using the meta keywords on WordPress, or is this harmful to AI search engines?
In general, if you use the keywords and they're in the right place and they would make sense to a human, then it is a positive. You should keep doing that.
I'm trying to go through the chat. We've got a few in there. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything for you here, Ariel. Let's see. Carrie is asking, do you ask Perplexity or any AI platform to index your site? Or can you ask? I'm sorry, can you ask?
Good question. I don't think that you can actively ask for it to be indexed. You can certainly not prevent it from being indexed. Okay, so basically invite it to be indexed. But I'm not familiar with any way where you can actually proactively say, please index my site. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the answer to that goes back to, since we're talking to Search Engine Journal, and search is such a central pillar to how these AI engines work. As you saw in the last demo that we had, we're going to Bing and then looking at results and then looking at the content of the results. If you are visible on those search engines, traditional search engines, then the AI search engines will get to know you and most likely will start indexing you. So that's a good start. And I assume that everyone here on the call has been investing a lot of time and effort to be visible on traditional search engines.
Yeah, and Jory just messaged me and said that you can ask it a question about your ask it a question about with your domain. Okay.
I see.
All right,
So
Jory.
you're saying if you if you kind of ask it specifically a question about your domain, you can force it to go to your domain. That's interesting. I didn't think about that.
Jory said they use Bright Data, so help her out here. And I've noticed Jory's out there answering some questions, so I love the interactivity. That's why we do these. It's nice to learn from your peers, from the guests that we have here. So that's why we do these. All right, let's see.
I'm curious, Heather, can we jump to the poll? Because I was in the presentation, I was in full screen mode. I didn't see the answer. The polls that we have.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, we've got another one that I'm gonna pop this up real quick. Do you work in search marketing or developing search products or tools? But while that one pops up for you all, let me pull this up. So
the question was, if you remember, have you seen a decrease in your, basically website traffic?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty conclusive, right? That this is making an impact.
Yeah, and there we go. So 76% said yes, they've seen similar trends. 24 said no. So surprised sometimes when those aren't 100%. All right.
Okay.
Let's see. What else do we have? So Denise, and I can't max this one for you, but Denise says, is it worth marketing and SEO agencies to provide AEO services?
I think, yeah, I think AEO is like the new SEO, right? As people flock to these answer engines, you really want to try and be present. Be present either with your brand, so people when they ask a question, they can see your brand, or even better, with citations that can get you traffic directly to your site. If you neglect to do that, a growing number of users who are moving away from the traditional search engines simply won't see you. And that's really the objective. I think of the presentation here was to talk about how the things that we need to do to identify these trends and to what we can do to adapt the solutions to make this work.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of adaptation. Let's see if we've got time for one more question. Let's see. Maybe a good one from Rafaela. Let's get this up. When we don't appear for an important keyword in the AIO, and we've already followed all the best practices, is there a way to force the tool? Could sending feedback to Google help?
I don't know the answer, like for real, but my feeling is that there probably isn't. I mean, it's very similar to the frustration that I guess many people have when they are trying very hard to appear on search, like traditional search results, and they're trying to kind of crack the code to see how to get that done. So I don't know of any such thing. But actually, these are I feel bad about not having the answers, but I can tell you that we're going to be looking at this recording to see what we can do and how we can maybe implement some of these things if there are solutions in our own stack.
Great. All right, I lied. We'll take one more because I think Raphael is still finishing up over in the breakout room. We don't want to cut him off. So Stephanie asks, and this is specific to an insurance company, but I think this could go, for any type of vertical. How can we correct and prevent AI from providing information to an insurance company with a name similar to ours? AI is giving out information to their clients.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm not a lawyer, okay? So this is by no means any kind of legal advice. But I think in these cases, especially when we're talking about companies and probably brands and probably trademarks, that in this case, you could reach out, and I assume that these tools have the ways to be contacted to protest regarding these kinds of things. Okay, I think so. I don't know for a fact, but it would make a whole lot of sense because otherwise it could be like a real jungle out there.
And I like these opinion ones. So Alex is asking, what is your favorite tool when researching keywords to make sure that the content is getting used in the AIOs?
I am embarrassed to say that I don't have a favorite tool. We in Bright Data, as we provide the infrastructure or the pipes or the tools for you guys to do your thing. Okay, we don't. I mean, we have people in the company. We have people in the company who are working on getting Bright Data visible on all the search engines and the answer engines, etc. They would know that, but I don't know off the top of my head. Most of the effort that we put is actually in creating the infrastructure and the rotating proxies and the God knows what to make all of these things work at scale and reliably. As you saw, the reliability is very, very important because things change, the internet changes, websites change, and our customers trust us to basically mask all of this noise from them and to have kind of predictable environment. So we work on the I would say lower level kind of access to give you access to these things. I don't personally use these tools. I'm sure I would have a favorite one, but I don't.
All right. I'm going to pull down the screen share. And Ariel, I just want to give you a big thank you for being here, for sharing all of this knowledge and information, with our attendees. Again, we'll make sure everybody gets the recording. We'll get those handout links to you as well. But anything that you want to leave them with and tell them where to find you.
Well, you can find me personally at ariel@brightdata.com. That's my email address. So just my first name @brightdata.com. I think, and I really highly recommend for you to sign up to Bright Data. And I think we have a coupon that you guys can use. You can see all of these things. We have a ton of information on our YouTube channel and blogs. You can actually check with our own AI inside the system and basically say, I need to do this and this. What is the best way to do that? And you will get step-by-step instructions. When you sign up, you'll also be assigned, an account manager or someone who will be able to hold your hand if you need that kind of support. We're here for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you one more time. And Ariel, we'll make sure we get all the questions over to you, especially Lisa's very long index or questions. So we'll get those over. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you at next week's webinar. Have a great one. Bye, all.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.